Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore, where I draw and talk about monsters, characters, and gods, and other things from D&D 5th edition, all while going over their history and lore, and interesting ways to utilize them in your own games. This week, we're going to be looking into Auril the Frostmaiden, the Forgotten Realms goddess of cold and winter, and a key player in the frozen adventure, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Auril's traditionally depicted as a human woman with pure blue skin and silvery hair, garbed in frostbitten armor and robes coated in snow, with a constant chill of winter surrounding her. Being the embodiment of winter's harshness, she is often believed to be arrogant and unpredictable in her moods and her decisions, taking great pleasure in torturing her enemies with a constant bitter cold. She is a goddess worshipped more out of fear than devotion, and her primary goal is to spread her worship across the entirety of the land, a feat accomplished by covering the whole realm in ice and snow. There has also been a state of confusion regarding the Archfey known as the Queen of Air and Darkness, many believing her and Auril to be synonymous with one another. This was ultimately proven false, but many communities of Fae could still hold that belief, and as such pay tributes of power and sacrifice to her. She is most active in the region of the Icewind Dale up north, but this does not mean that she hasn't attempted to spread her influence across other areas, such as when she encroached into the goddess Umberle's territory by freezing her tides. This act caused Umberle to cut off her alliance with Auril, allying with the gods Talos and Malar in a bid to take the Frostmaiden down, forcing her to retreat far off into the Sea of Moving Ice, believed to be the coldest region of the Forgotten Realms. She is also known for causing the everlasting Rime, a constant winter that originated from the Isle of Solstice and ravaged the Icewind Dale for the better part of 2 years. However, this taxed Auril's power immensely, so much so that she became one of the few gods who could ever risk being slain by a mortal creature. Killing her would force her to be banished until the next winter solstice, however, as it is believed that gods cannot be permanently killed. In regards to her clergy, Auril was commonly worshipped and feared in the north as an integral part of their culture. Seen as the harbinger of winter upon the whole world, sacrifices were made to her in the form of sending food on rafts during late autumn and winter. During particularly harsh winters, in which starvation and death by the cold were a real possibility, some people resorted to performing human sacrifices. There are even records to suggest that at Zental Keep, followers of Auril were openly recruited from the destitute, homeless, and from refugees during wintertime. They were offered salvation and freedom from the risk of freezing to death in an alley, so long as they joined the faith. Auril often used frost giants and winter wolves to deliver commands to her worshippers, while Frostwind Viragos and winter hags were the actual devoted high priests and handmaidens to the Frostmaiden. Auril was also one of the deities worshipped by air and water genasi, especially those who lived in colder regions, with air genasi tending to be more zealous and fanatical in their devotion. As such, you can also see any of them taking command of her various different cults. In regards to her relationship with other gods, in earlier centuries, Auril was a member of a group known as the Deities of Fury, alongside Malar, Umberle, and Talos. But that alliance quickly dissolved due to Malar's hatred of Auril and her aforementioned overstepping into Umberle's territories. Following the Spell Plague, an age in which arcane magic ceased to function, Auril gained significant power by siphoning it from the faiths of other gods into her own, claiming dominion over wind and storms alongside cold and winter. The victims of this theft included Talos himself, and even the orcish god Grumsh, and this would also put her into direct conflict with the ancient primordial power, Akkadi. Auril and the nature goddess Shanti are also mortal enemies, constantly battling each other for dominion over the natural world, and her other enemies include the gods Uthgar, Suni, and Kosith. At one time, however, it is believed that Auril was in a relationship with Thrym, the god of the frost giants, and thus gave birth to their Empyrean daughter, Naukara. Now, when it comes to the ways that I like to portray Auril, I tend to take a little bit more of a subtle, laid-back approach with her. She doesn't exactly need to be a domineering goddess because everyone in the world understands the dangers of cold and the winter. And as such, she doesn't really have to do a lot of work in order to reinforce her own worship. She is the icon of ice and snow, and putting her face on the deadliest season allows her to draw power from fearful worship very easily. That's why whenever she does take an interest in something or actively requests that something be done, it is usually very serious. Most people who worship Auril do not wish for more divine power like they would from other gods, but rather wish that she takes mercy on them and spares them her wrath and disdain. This isn't always the case, however, and some people can beseech her for the ability to command wind and cold to better their own interest, such as Storm Herald barbarians or Tempest clerics, both of which can wield such powers in her name. She is also, in my eyes, one of the gods who takes the greatest interest in the happenings of the world, amused by both the actions that mortals take to avoid winter's wrath, and the belief that the Fae mistaken her for the ruler of the Court of Winter. On a whim, she may even give these Fae followers modicums of power, just to see what would happen. Realistically, the only person I could see Auril giving any true favor to would be her half-giant daughter, Naukara. whom I imagine she protects and keeps secret within the realm of giants with her father, Thrym. Woe be to anybody who threatens her daughter, lest they feel the full force of winter at their back. Classes that I like to align with Auril include all manner of fighters, paladins, and barbarians, especially storm heralds, tempest, nature, death, grave, war, trickery, and twilight clerics, stars, moon, and arctic land druids, long death, mercy, and four elements monks, some rangers, sea and storm sorcerers, genie, hexblade, archfey, and great old one warlocks, and necromancy and evocation wizards. For encounters and PC or NPC concepts regarding Auril, here's a couple examples of things that I've used that you guys can steal for your games. One of my favorite NPCs that I've used many a times in my game is a beautiful yet deadly winter Eladrin barbarian, the chieftain of a clan who venerates Auril as the goddess of not just winter, but life and death as well. To her clan, winter grants powers and its snow veils their forces so they may raid the southern settlements for food and resources, believing that Auril's wind is a test of strength and fortitude, and that she will allow the cold to consume only the weak who can't fight against it. This chieftain can just as easily also be a air or water genasi or a white or silver dragonborn, so change the lineage to fit your story. Another NPC that I've always had in my back pocket but haven't yet gotten to deploy is a powerful Tempest Cleric or Storm Sorcerer who wields the capability to calm storms and end harsh blizzards when called upon. However, the ultimate trade-off is that every time that she performs this ritual and beseeches Auril to spare her people, she loses a little bit of her life force and becomes weaker and weaker. This position can be something that is taken up by members of the village out of duty and self-sacrifice, or it could be something that the villagers force upon a person in order to survive the winter. And then lastly, we have a devoted Bure hag and her coven, who have traveled to the harsh north due to being attracted to the horrid occurrences there, such as people murdering each other for food and resources, or stealing wood from the Fey forest for their precious fire. Their attraction to this area has caused a group to cultivate around them, spurred on by the dark intent that they have seeded within these people under the excuse of survival. This could be a tribe of raiding barbarians, a collection of elementals ravaging nearby settlements, or even some malevolent fae such as quicklings or thick-bearded redcaps. Regardless, these hags have become a blight on the land and should be dealt with by the party, either by culling them out by force, introducing a new object of veneration and worship, or by perhaps convincing acolytes of the coven to turn on their matrons. That last one could be a particularly interesting plot thread for a Hexblood PC, as Hexblood are more often than not born from hags. Beyond those three examples, other monsters that I'd like to align with Auril-based quests include white and silver dragons, winter eladrin, ice devils, frost salamanders, yetis, ice trolls, giant ice toads, the gargantuan frostworm, and water and air elementals. In terms of adventure hooks and quest ideas, here's some of the things that I have run and also intend to run for future games that you guys can also steal. The party can be traveling to a village in the snowy mountains before being beseeched by a lone hermit for aid, as the local cult to Auril has kidnapped their child to use as a human sacrifice. They're doing this because this winter has been particularly brutal to everybody who lives there, and when they arrive at the village itself, they can come across a variety of NPCs, some being sympathetic who will aid them in their endeavor, and some NPCs who believe that what the cult is doing is right, as it'll foster their survival and save them from starvation and death by the cold. These NPCs can even alert the cult to the party's presence, leading to some interesting combat and RP within the village, especially if you have the notion that the cult has sacrificed people before, and it was successful in alleviating the terrible weather. On the flip side, you can have the party come across an angry, torch-wielding mob who recruit the party to aid them, their goal being to destroy the local commune of genasi that worship the Frostmaiden. They believe that their presence has brought a particularly harsh winter, and the party can voyage off there to meet the genasi and encounter one of two things. Either they are a truly vicious group whose rites and presence have actually brought misfortune upon the land, or they can discover a small, peaceful group of genasi who worship Auril as their elemental patron rather than the harsh, murderous goddess of winter, simply being the victims of blame by the starving, freezing villagers. Lastly, to go for something a little more classic, a white dragon has taken residence atop a mountain overlooking a once beautiful plain, their presence having chilled the entire region to freezing and causing many of the town's local crops to die. The dragon is a worshipper of Auril, using its innate cold aura and frequent attacks on the people as sacrifices to her. This one's a little bit easy and simple, but it's always good to have a base starting point for your adventures. And then of course, there's the actual adventure of Icewind Dale, Rite of the Frostmaiden, which I sadly haven't gotten a chance to play, but it seems very interesting in its approach to isolation horror and its allowance for the party to actually fight and defeat Auril. And then maneuvering forward, we have our homebrew magic item for this video, this one being known as the Hoarfrost Pick. A +2 war pick that requires attunement, and deals 1d8 piercing damage and 1d6 cold damage on a successful hit. The wielder also becomes resistant to cold damage and can cast the spell Ice Knife at will as a bonus action, and can cast the spells Armor of Agathis at 3rd level and Frost Fingers at 1st level once on a short rest, and finally they can cast the spell Investiture of Ice once per long rest. I've included the item stack block in the description below. And so ends the story of Auril the Frostmaiden, a goddess that I very much enjoy having in my world as the antithesis of beautiful, bountiful nature. I want to thank all you guys for watching, and if you wish to see more D&D videos like this, please like and subscribe. I do my best to upload videos every Sunday, and if you guys want a chance to vote on the next subject, please follow me on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, and cast your vote in the polls. And please, DMs and players, please let me know how you guys have used or encountered Auril in your games, and let me know what you guys would like to see in upcoming videos. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.